Stop acting like a saint." The shout cut through the afternoon heat on Allen Avenue. People turned. A white SUV was parked by the roadside. Its engine was still running. The doors were open like someone had jumped out in a hurry. And there, in front of everyone, a rich medical doctor in a neat suit raised his hand and struck an old woman. The old woman fell to her knees. Her wrapper loosened. Her scarf slipped from her grey hair. Her palms pressed the hot ground as she tried to steady herself. "Doctor, why?" someone whispered. The doctor's face was tight, angry, and cold. His name was Dr. Adrian Whitmore, the kind of man people greeted with respect. The kind of man whose photo was on hospital flyers. The kind of man Lagos parents pointed to and said, "Be like him." But right now, Dr. Whitmore looked like a stranger. The old woman looked up at him with wet eyes. "Adrian, my son," she said softly, as if the words might calm him. He stepped closer, his voice shaking with a kind of rage that did not sound normal. "You will not call me your son in public," he snapped, "not after what you have done." The crowd formed a circle without meaning to. Phones rose in the air like small mirrors. The old woman's lips trembled. "What have I done?" Dr. Whitmore pointed at her like she was a dangerous thing. "You know," he said. "You know why my wife cannot have children. You know why my home is empty." A young man in the crowd murmured, "Did he just say his mother is the reason?" The old woman's chest rose and fell quickly. She shook her head. "Adrian, please, I do not understand." But Dr. Whitmore did not listen. He grabbed her arm and pulled her up, not gently, not with care. The old woman winced. She tried not to cry out, as if she did not want to embarrass him more. Then she said something that broke the hearts of the people watching. "I came because I missed you," she whispered. "I came because you stopped picking my calls." A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. Dr. Whitmore's eyes flashed. "You came to pretend," he hissed. "You came to act innocent." Then he pushed her away. The old woman stumbled backward and hit the side of the SUV with her shoulder. Someone shouted, "Stop, that is an old woman." Another voice said, "Is that his mother?" Dr. Whitmore's chest heaved. His hands shook like he was fighting something inside him. And then, from behind him, a young woman stepped out of the SUV. She was beautiful in a polished way. Clean makeup, straight posture, expensive handbag. Her wedding ring shone as she lifted her hand to adjust her sunglasses. Her name was Mrs. Charlotte Whitmore. She looked at the old woman on the ground with calm eyes, like she was looking at dirt on a shoe. "Adrian," Charlotte said softly, "do not waste your energy." The old woman blinked up at her. "My son's wife." Charlotte smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "You should stop acting," she said. "Everyone knows what you are." The old woman's voice was small. "Madam, I am only a mother." Charlotte leaned closer. "A mother," she repeated, "or a witch?" The word hit the air like a slap. The crowd gasped. The old woman froze, as if her whole body forgot how to move. Dr. Whitmore looked at Charlotte, then at the old woman, and his face tightened again, like the word had opened a door in his mind. "You hear that?" he shouted at the old woman. "You hear what my wife said? Say the truth today." The old woman shook her head again and again. "I do not know what you mean." Dr. Whitmore's voice rose. "Liar." He lifted his hand again, but before it landed, a voice from the crowd shouted, "Police?" Everyone looked. A small police van was turning slowly into the street, stuck in traffic like everything in Lagos. People began to talk at once. "Good. Arrest him. See what money is doing to people?" Dr. Whitmore paused. His eyes moved from face to face, from phone to phone. The recording lights were like tiny red eyes watching him. For 1 second, it looked like he might stop. Then he leaned down to the old woman and said in a low voice, so only she could hear, "You will leave Lagos today. If you stay, I will show you real shame." The old woman's lips parted. "Adrian, I raised you." He straightened. His jaw clenched, and as the police van crept closer, the old woman tried to stand, not because she was strong, but because she did not want to be a burden. But her legs failed her. She swayed, her eyes rolled slightly, and then she collapsed fully onto the ground. A scream came from the crowd. "Ah, Mama!" Someone rushed forward with a bottle of water. Another person said, "She has fainted." Dr. Whitmore stared down at her, breathing hard. Charlotte's face did not change. She only adjusted her handbag and said, "Let us go." But at that exact moment, one of the phones in the crowd zoomed in close, so close that the whole world could see Dr. Whitmore's face clearly. And in the middle of the noise, the old woman's hand moved weakly. Her fingers reached for Dr. Whitmore's trouser leg like a child reaching for comfort. "My son," she whispered, almost without sound. "I did not harm you." Dr. Whitmore looked around again. The police van was now close enough, the crowd was louder, and the phone camera was still recording. Then suddenly, Dr. Whitmore's own phone rang in his pocket, loud and sharp. He froze, he pulled it out and saw the caller ID. St. Catherine's Hospital, emergency unit. His throat tightened. Why would the emergency unit be calling him now at this moment? He pressed the phone to his ear. "Dr. Whitmore," a nurse said quickly, her voice shaking, "you need to come now. It is urgent." Dr. Whitmore's eyes narrowed. "What is it?" The nurse hesitated, then said the words that made his blood turn cold. "It is about your mother, and a report we found from years ago." "Doctor, I think you have been lied to." Dr. Whitmore's hand trembled. Charlotte stepped closer. "Adrian, what did she say?" He could not answer, because the old woman on the ground suddenly opened her eyes again, wide and fearful, and whispered one strange sentence before her eyes closed once more. "Do not trust your wife." Dr. Whitmore's face went pale. The police van stopped. A police officer stepped down, and Charlotte's calm smile slowly disappeared. Then the officer raised his hand and said, "Dr. Adrian Whitmore, you are coming with us." And Dr. Whitmore stood there, trapped between his fainting mother, his wife's sharp eyes, the police, and hundreds of phones, as the video of his slap began to spread across Lagos. Dr. Adrian Whitmore sat stiffly in the back of the police van as it crawled through Lagos traffic. The siren was not on. The officers did not shout. But the silence inside the van was heavy, like something bad waiting to speak. Through the small window, Adrian could still see people holding up their phones. Some were still filming. Some were whispering. Some were shaking their heads. His heart beat fast. This was not how his life was meant to look. Only 2 hours earlier, he had been in his office at St. Catherine's Hospital, Victoria Island, wearing his white coat, signing files, saving lives. Nurses respected him, patients trusted him. Junior doctors called him Sir with pride. Now he was here, behind bars, because of his mother, or so he believed. In the front seat, one police officer spoke quietly into a radio. Another officer glanced at Adrian through the mirror, his eyes full of disappointment. "You know, say social media don't already carry this matter," the officer said to his colleague. Adrian looked away. His phone vibrated again in his hand. Missed call. St. Catherine's Hospital, emergency unit. He swallowed hard and looked up. "Officer," he said, forcing his voice to sound calm, "there has been a misunderstanding. I am a respected doctor. This will be sorted out." The officer did not answer. They stopped at a junction near Maryland. The traffic thickened. Horns blared. Street sellers moved between cars. Adrian leaned back and closed his eyes. And just like that, his mind went back, far back, to a time before hospitals, before suits, before Charlotte. Years ago, in a quiet part of Agege, there was a small room behind an old building. That room was where Mrs. Margaret Whitmore lived with her young son. Margaret was thin but strong. Her back was bent from years of hard work, but her eyes were gentle. Every morning, she woke before sunrise. She cleaned houses. She washed clothes. She sold small items by the roadside. Anything that could put food on the table. "Adrian," she would say, tying her scarf carefully, "education is your way out." Little Adrian would nod, his school uniform already faded. Sometimes he asked questions. "Mummy, why do other children have fathers?" Margaret would smile, though her eyes carried pain. "Some men leave, but God stays." She never spoke badly of anyone. She never complained. When Adrian fell sick as a child, Margaret carried him on her back to the clinic. When school fees were due, she begged and borrowed. When teachers complained that Adrian needed textbooks, she worked extra nights. There were days she ate nothing so her son could eat. There were nights she cried quietly so he would not hear. And Adrian grew. He grew bright. He grew sharp. He became the pride of his school. "Your son will go far," teachers told Margaret. She only smiled and said, "Thank you." When Adrian gained admission to study medicine at the university, Margaret knelt on the bare floor and thanked God with tears. But the years changed him. As Adrian entered the world of success, something else entered his life. Charlotte. Charlotte came from a good home, not rich, but polished. She spoke carefully, she dressed well, she knew how to smile at the right time. They met at a medical conference in Lagos. She admired his intelligence, he admired her confidence. When Adrian introduced her to his mother, Margaret welcomed her with open arms. "My daughter," Margaret said warmly, holding her hands. "You are welcome." Charlotte smiled politely, but her eyes looked around the small room with quiet judgment. After Adrian and Charlotte married, things slowly changed. The visits reduced, the calls became short. And then the children did not come. At first, they laughed about it. Then they worried. Then Charlotte started to cry at night. "Adrian," she said one evening, her voice shaking, "I have been to doctors. They say I am fine." Adrian frowned. "Then maybe we just need time." Charlotte shook her head slowly. "No, something is wrong." She paused, then spoke softly. "Your mother." Adrian looked at her sharply. "My mother?" Charlotte nodded. "I did not want to say it, but strange things started after she visited us last year." Adrian laughed nervously. "Charlotte, please." But she continued, "Ever since she came, my dreams changed. I feel heavy. I feel blocked." Adrian tried to brush it off, but the seed was planted. Over time, Charlotte's words became stronger. "She does not want us to have children. She is jealous of me. She wants you to remain hers alone." Adrian argued at first, but doubt is powerful, and doubt once planted grows quietly. The police van stopped suddenly. Adrian opened his eyes. They had arrived at the station. As he stepped down, he saw more phones, more eyes, more whispers. Inside the station, an officer spoke firmly. "Dr. Whitmore, you will write a statement." Adrian nodded stiffly. His phone vibrated again. This time he answered. "Doctor," the nurse said urgently, "your mother was brought in. She collapsed near Allen Avenue." "She is stable for now." Adrian's heart skipped. "Is she conscious?" "Yes," the nurse replied. "But doctor, about that old medical report we found, it is important." "What report?" Adrian asked. The nurse lowered her voice. "It concerns infertility, and it does not point to your mother." Adrian's fingers tightened around the phone. Before he could speak, the officer called out, "Doctor, come and write your statement now." Adrian ended the call. As he sat down with the pen, his hands shaking, a thought crossed his mind for the first time. What if I was wrong? Outside the station, the video of him beating his mother continued to spread. And somewhere in a hospital bed, his mother lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a son who might come too late. Adrian did not sleep that night. The bench at the police station was hard, but that was not the problem. His mind was louder than the noise outside. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother on the ground, her hands shaking, her voice calling him, "My son." At first light, an officer opened the cell door. "Dr. Whitmore," he said, "you are allowed one hospital visit under supervision." Adrian stood up quickly. "My mother?" The officer nodded. The drive to St. Catherine's Hospital felt longer than usual. Lagos was already awake. People walked fast. Cars moved slowly. Life continued like nothing had happened. But Adrian's life felt broken into two parts. Before and after that slap. Inside the hospital, nurses whispered when they saw him. Some looked away. Some stared. The officer stayed close as Adrian walked into the emergency ward. His mother lay on the bed, small and quiet. Her eyes were open. When she saw him, she tried to sit up. "Adrian," she said softly. He rushed to her side. "Please do not move." Her eyes searched his face. "You came." His throat burned. "I am here." For a moment they were silent. Then Margaret spoke again. "Why do you hate me so much?" The question was gentle, but it cut deep. Adrian opened his mouth, then closed it again. He did not know how to answer. A nurse cleared her throat behind him. "Dr. Whitmore, the consultant wants to see you." Adrian nodded and followed her out, his legs heavy. They entered a small office. Files were stacked neatly on the table. A middle-aged consultant sat waiting, his expression serious. "Dr. Whitmore," the consultant said, "please sit." Adrian sat. "We reviewed some old records while attending to your mother," the consultant continued. "But what concerns us more is your wife's file." Adrian frowned. "My wife's file?" The consultant slid a brown folder across the table. This file was transferred from a private clinic in Lagos. It was requested some months ago but never reviewed. Adrian stared at the folder. His name was written on it, his wife's name too. His hands trembled as he opened it. Page after page, dates, notes, medical terms. Then one sentence caught his eye. History of repeated terminations of pregnancy. His heart skipped. How many? Adrian asked quietly. The consultant sighed. Several, over a period of years, before your marriage. Adrian felt dizzy. That is not possible. The consultant spoke gently. Doctor, some of the procedures were not safe. There was damage. Adrian's mouth went dry. Damage to what? The consultant met his eyes. To her womb. The words landed slowly, like stones. Because of the damage, the consultant continued, it would be extremely difficult for her to carry a pregnancy. Adrian pushed the file away as if it burned his fingers. No, he whispered. No. She told me she was fine. The consultant nodded. Many people hide such things. Adrian stood up suddenly. She said my mother was the cause. The consultant looked surprised. Your mother? Adrian laughed once, but it sounded empty. She said my mother was a witch. Silence filled the room. The consultant spoke carefully. Dr. Whitmore, there is no medical reason to blame your mother. Adrian felt his knees weaken. He sat back down. Images rushed into his mind. Charlotte crying, Charlotte pointing, Charlotte whispering fear into his ears. And his mother, begging. I beat her, he said softly. I beat her in public. The consultant did not speak. Adrian covered his face with his hands. After a long moment, the consultant said, There is something else. Adrian looked up slowly. The file shows that your wife asked for this information to be hidden, the consultant said. She did not want you to know. Adrian's chest tightened. Why? He asked. The consultant hesitated. Fear, shame, or control? Control. The word echoed in Adrian's head. He stood up again, this time steady. I need to see my wife, he said. Charlotte was at home in Lekki, sitting comfortably on the sofa when Adrian arrived. She looked up, surprised. Adrian, you should be at the station. He stood in front of her, silent. Why are you looking at me like that? She asked. He dropped the file on the table. What is this? He asked calmly. Charlotte glanced at it, then looked away. Open it, Adrian said. She did not move. Open it, he repeated louder. Charlotte slowly opened the file. Her fingers shook. Adrian watched her face change. How many? He asked. She swallowed. It was before I met you. How many? He asked again. She burst into tears. I was young. I was scared. And my mother? Adrian asked. Charlotte wiped her face quickly. She does not like me. So you destroyed her name? Adrian's voice rose. You called her a witch? Charlotte stood up. I was desperate. You made me hate my own mother, Adrian said, his voice shaking. You made me hurt her. Charlotte stepped back. Adrian, please. Did you ever feel sorry? He asked. She hesitated. That pause said everything. At that moment, Adrian's phone buzzed loudly. He looked at the screen. Unknown number. He answered. Dr. Whitmore, a male voice said, calm and official. This is from the medical board. Adrian's heart tightened. We need you to come in, the voice continued. There is a petition against you. The video of yesterday has raised serious concerns. Adrian closed his eyes. Outside, another phone buzzed. Then another. Notifications flooded in. Charlotte looked at him, fear now clear in her eyes. Adrian, she whispered, what is happening? He looked at her slowly. The truth, he said, and at that moment, a nurse from the hospital rushed into the room, breathless. Doctor, she cried, your mother. She is asking to see you urgently. Adrian turned and ran for the door. Behind him, Charlotte stood frozen as the weight of her lies began to crush her. Adrian ran through the hospital corridor like a man chasing his own shadow. Nurses moved aside quickly when they saw his face. His shoes hit the floor hard. His breath was uneven. He reached the ward and stopped. His mother lay on the bed, weaker than before. Tubes were attached to her arm. Her eyes were open, but they looked tired, like eyes that had seen too much pain in one lifetime. Mother, Adrian said softly as he stepped closer. She turned her head slowly and looked at him. You came again, Margaret whispered. Yes, he replied quickly. I am here. I am not going anywhere. She studied his face for a long moment, as if she was trying to read his heart. You look different, she said. Adrian swallowed. I was wrong, her brows pulled together. About what? About everything, he said, his voice breaking. I believed lies. I hurt you. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. When a child grows tall, she said quietly, he forgets the ground that held him. Tears filled Adrian's eyes. He held her hand gently. I know now, he said. I know the truth. She opened her eyes again. What truth? Adrian hesitated. That you are innocent. Margaret nodded slowly, as if she had known all along. I never wished you harm, she said, not once. I know, Adrian replied. I see it now. There was silence between them, heavy and full. Then Margaret spoke again. Your wife, she said softly. She does not want me alive in your life. Adrian looked down. She lied to me. Margaret sighed. Lies grow when they are fed. Adrian squeezed her hand. I will fix this. She looked at him sharply. How? He did not answer, because at that moment, a nurse walked in and cleared her throat. Dr. Whitmore, she said, there are visitors asking for you. Who? Adrian asked. People from the medical board, the nurse replied, and a lawyer. Adrian felt his chest tighten. Let them wait, he said firmly. I am with my mother. The nurse nodded and stepped out. Margaret looked worried. What is happening? Adrian forced a smile. Nothing you should worry about. She did not believe him. Adrian, she said slowly, promise me something. Yes, he replied quickly. No matter what happens, she said, do not let anger rule you again. Adrian nodded. I promise. Just then, his phone vibrated. He looked at the screen. Charlotte calling. He declined the call. The phone rang again. He declined it again. Margaret noticed. Your wife? Yes, Adrian replied. She turned her face away slightly. I have forgiven her already. Adrian was stunned. How? Margaret's voice was weak but steady. Holding hate is heavy. Adrian bowed his head. Outside the ward, raised voices could be heard. Dr. Whitmore must come out now. We have questions. Adrian stood up slowly. I will be back, he told his mother. She held his hand tighter. Do not forget who you are. He nodded and gently pulled away. In a small meeting room downstairs, 3 people waited. 2 men in suits, 1 woman holding a file. They did not smile. Dr. Adrian Whitmore, the woman said as he entered. Thank you for coming. He sat down. The video of you assaulting an elderly woman has gone viral, she continued. That woman is your mother. Adrian nodded. Yes. This raises serious ethical concerns, one of the men added. We are placing you under immediate investigation. Adrian took a deep breath. I accept responsibility. The woman opened her file. There is more. She slid her phone across the table. Adrian looked at the screen. It was another video. This time it was recorded secretly, inside his own house. Charlotte's voice filled the room. She is the problem, Charlotte was saying in the video. Once she is gone, everything will be fine. Adrian's heart sank. The woman looked at him carefully. Doctor, did you know this recording exists? No, Adrian replied. It was sent anonymously, she said, along with medical documents. Adrian stiffened. What documents? Your wife's medical history, the woman replied. Silence fell. The man beside her spoke. Dr. Whitmore, did you know your wife cannot have children due to past medical procedures? Adrian's jaw tightened. Yes, I found out today. The woman nodded. Then you understand why this matter is serious. Adrian stood up slowly. What happens now? The woman closed her file. That depends, she said, on what you choose to do next. At that exact moment, Adrian's phone rang again. This time it was not Charlotte. It was the hospital. He answered quickly. Yes? The voice on the other end was tense. Dr. Whitmore, the nurse said, please come now. Your mother's condition has suddenly changed. Adrian's face drained of color. What do you mean? He asked sharply. There was a pause, then the nurse said the words that froze him completely. She is asking for a witness, and she is saying your wife's name. Adrian dropped the phone. The people in the room stared at him. He turned and ran for the door, as fear, guilt, and truth crashed together inside his chest. Adrian burst back into the ward. Machines beeped softly. Nurses stood alert. His mother lay still, her chest rising slowly. "Mother," he called, rushing to her side. Her eyes opened. She looked at him, then past him, toward the door. "Is she here?" Margaret asked faintly. Adrian's throat tightened. "Who?" "Your wife." Adrian turned. Charlotte stood at the doorway. Her face was pale. Her confident posture was gone. The expensive handbag hung loosely from her arm. "Mother," Charlotte said quietly, stepping forward, "I came to see you." Margaret studied her carefully. Then she spoke words that shocked everyone in the room. "I know what you did." Charlotte froze. "I know you blamed me," Margaret continued, her voice weak but clear. "I know you put darkness where there was none." Charlotte's lips trembled. "I was afraid." Margaret nodded slowly. Fear can turn a heart cruel. Adrian stepped forward. "Mother, please rest." Margaret shook her head slightly. "No, let me speak." She looked at Charlotte again. "I forgive you." Charlotte broke down. She fell to her knees. "I destroyed your name. I destroyed your home." Margaret closed her eyes. "You destroyed your own peace." Those were the last clear words she spoke. Minutes later, Margaret slipped into a deep sleep from which she did not wake again. The flat sound of the monitor filled the room. Adrian stood frozen. His knees gave way. He screamed. The news spread fast across Lagos. Doctor loses mother after public assault. Hospital board suspends Dr. Whitmore, wife accused of manipulation and lies. Adrian's life fell apart in quiet steps. The medical board suspended his license indefinitely. Patients cancelled appointments. The hospital removed his name from their walls. People who once praised him now crossed the road to avoid him. At home, silence lived where love once pretended to stay. Charlotte tried to speak. Adrian did not listen. One evening, as they sat across from each other in the same living room where lies were once planted, Adrian spoke calmly. "My mother raised me alone," he said. "She gave me everything." Charlotte cried. "I did not know it would go this far." "You watched me beat her," Adrian replied. "You did not stop me." Charlotte could not answer. Weeks later, the truth fully caught up with her. The clinic that handled her past procedures was investigated. Records surfaced. Her friends turned away. Her family demanded explanations. And then came the final blow. The marriage ended quietly. Charlotte left Lagos in shame, carrying a reputation she could not escape. No amount of makeup could hide it. No distance could erase it. Adrian sold the big house. He moved into a small apartment near Agege. Every morning, he visited his mother's grave. He cleaned it himself. He spoke to her. "I understand now," he whispered one day. "Success without kindness is failure." Years passed. Adrian never returned to medicine. He opened a small free clinic instead, quiet, humble, and far from cameras. On the wall was one framed sentence: "Respect the hands that raised you." People who knew his story understood. Those who did not still felt something heavy when they entered the clinic, because karma had taught its lesson. Not with noise, not with force, but with loss. And Adrian lived every day knowing that the greatest punishment was not what he lost, but who he lost. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Do well to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories. Stay blessed.